Matt here from ManyWarGaming.com, and it's time for another sit and talk. So printed off the questions. Of course, this is a show where you can ask me anything about anything, whether it's wargaming, business, or you might get into politics or religion. So if you are easily offended by those topics, please do not watch this show. And then I just print off the questions in order of which one's been thumbed up the most for the first 10, and then random questions after that. If you want to leave a question or comment that I will possibly answer in the next show, then leave it in the comment section below, unless you're watching this on YouTube, in which case click the link in the video description and go and leave a comment there, because I printed off from the site. So I don't respond to the YouTube comments. Not that I don't read them, it's just I can print them off easier if I have them on a site. So let's go through this. Bpar. Hey Matt, when doing your storytime videos, shouldn't you be wearing a sweater jacket, smoking a pipe, and sitting in a recliner? Maybe have Steve and Andy sitting on the floor and completely engrossed with your story. That would be funny, but don't think I'm gonna do that. Necronomicon. Hey Matt, you should send in a letter and apply to be CEO of Games Workshop. Now, I've actually had a few people say that, and I think I'm like 99.999% sure everybody is joking. But just on the off chance that anybody thinks that I actually would make a good CEO for Games Workshop, I wouldn't. I'd be horrible. I have no experience in any of that area. Running a small business with half a dozen employees is totally different than running a multi-million-dollar corporation. So I do not pretend to have the skills or the know-how to take Games Workshop and to have it continue to be profitable, never mind it grow beyond where it currently is. Do I think that they're making bad decisions? Yes, sometimes. I also think they're making good decisions, but I think that they're also losing market share, all this other stuff. But really in the end, I wouldn't know what to do to make it better. People say, everybody has their opinion of what Games Workshop should do. They should lower prices, they should use social media more. I've talked about that. They should not have these one-man stores. They should have more balanced rules or better tournament settings or whatever it happens to be. But the answer is we don't really know, because they have to do it and then see the results of it and then guess why they got those results. You know, that's the one thing I do know about a business, is that you can do stuff and then you can look at the numbers, but you can't ever be 100% sure why you got those numbers. Like for example, we can have like intuition. Like for example, when we put out a narrative campaign, we see a spike in the Vault membership. So we then infer, which correctly probably, that people like the campaign enough they're signing up for the Vault. And so you're able to kind of gauge that. But the question is, what about the campaign is making people want to sign up? Is it just that you're doing a campaign? Is it because it's new and it's a new thing? Is it going to keep going like that forever, or is it going to start to go down once we start doing more campaigns? Like, until you do something for a long time, it's really hard to know what factors are really making a difference. Is this storytime method better, or is this storytime method better? Is this filming method better? Is this, like, everybody's going to have their opinions, but in the end, there's no real 100% solid method of knowing what things you're doing right and what things you're doing wrong. You can only say, well, we're making money doing this, so we're doing enough right. We're doing more right than wrong. So, yeah, and I have no desire. You know, his paycheck is nice, but I don't think I'd be able to handle being a CEO. Never mind have the ability to be the CEO of Games Workshop. Not that I'm saying anybody actually thinks I should be. I thought maybe somebody out there is being serious, but this was set them straight that I don't think that I could actually have that job. Mexican DPS. Hey Matt, if you could have any Tyranid organism as a pet, what would you want? Keep in mind, the Nid would be completely loyal to you and obey your every command. I'd love to have a Carnifex. Nothing says you're ready to learn than riding an engine of destruction and mayhem to school. Thanks again for your response. Well, putting that caveat that is totally loyal and obeys my every command really changes it, because I'd want something like a flying hive tyrant or something, but at the same time that'd be big and kind of hard to feed. So a Hormigaunt would probably make a really good pet in that matter, because you can have it like keep all the vermin out of your house, and as far as I know, Hormigaunts don't really eat or go to the bathroom. They're kind of produced and eventually they die. I don't know what their lifespan is like though. That's the problem. Like, how long do Tyranids really live for? We don't know how long a specific Tyranid organism could actually survive on its own without having to like hibernate or go into stasis or something. Nowhere in the fluff does it ever really get into that, and for good reason. But assuming that they don't die in a short amount of time, and I'd be sad, then a Hormigaunt probably, because it's just, they're still big. Like you're looking at like a humongous creature. Like, Hormigaunts are still like the size of a person, just kind of crouched down. But if you like spread them out, so Hormigaunt would be good. So maybe size-wise, Ripper Swarms would be better. This cute little Ripper swarm. This Ripper, I guess, not a swarm. I don't want a swarm of them, I just want one of them. Don't want a litter of Rippers. But yeah, I always thought, growing up, I always thought it'd be cool if I had like a Velociraptor that was totally under my control. It'd be kind of neat. Not that I'd want it to go and like eat people, but it'd just be kind of cool to have it as a pet because they look really neat. Assassinator 13. If you found a Necron Scarab under your desk, what would you do? Well, once again, now that my mind is on this whole pet thing, let's assume that if it's under my desk and I found it, it hasn't just come out right out and killed me. So maybe it's subservient too. So I'd make it another pet to go alongside my Hormigaunt or Ripper. Actually, a Ripper and a Necron Scarab Swarm. There we go. That's what I want with my two pets. So I'd train them and I'd call them some really plain name because I'm not good at coming up with names. Rippy and Scar. I don't know. And I'd make them my pets and love them forever. And when the Ripper Swarm Ripper is finally old enough to die, I just have the Necron Scarab Swarm, like, infuse it with living metal, and so it could live forever. Because heck, if the Necrons can live for millions of years, then the Scarab can last a long time too. Mirrodin. Hey Matt, a question regarding your Dark Eldar is not gonna happen ever. The way you said it seems like even if someone who has an actual Dark Eldar army would come over to play you guys, you would just turn them away with, sorry, I hate Dark Eldar, not gonna play you ever. That's not true. I'll play them in a battle report. I'm talking about Dark Eldar narrative campaigns. So I've done Dark Eldar battle reports before. They're few and far between, not because I don't like them, although that does prevent the fact that we don't have any studio Dark Eldar armies, but because a lot of people don't play the Dark Eldar, and so there's not a lot of people that come and challenge me to a game with them. The few times I played against them, it's been tough, because it's always been against Tyranids, and they've always had some sort of spam of something that's really just destroyed my Tyranids, so I'm not a big fan of them even in the game. But yeah, that's just the case there. So it says here, anybody who watches Sit and Talks, know you hate them and you would not play them yourself, but does that count even not playing people who come in? But I didn't say that. I'm a one bat rep, your Nids versus Dia. If I wrote something if what I wrote is wrong, then there could be possibly a Dark Eldar narrative if a player brought that army, right? No narrative, because in a narrative campaign we have to go into the narrative, and that's the thing I hate most about Dark Eldar. So I can't guarantee that we'll never have one, because maybe it could be about like the pirating part of the Dark Eldars or something, but it's just their fluff just repulses me. So when it comes to like wanting to write a story, I have to really be excited about these campaigns. If you were around here when we'd like discuss their campaign, I have to find an idea that I'm like, ooh, I want to do that, because then I can put that energy into it rather than being forced to write a story. Like, you have to really want to do a narrative campaign in order to do it well. Refreshing Rice. Hey Matt, I know this might be a little, if not entirely, off topic to this. There is no such thing as off topic in the Sit and Talk, but I still want to know. Question, have you seen the Guardians of the Galaxy yet? I haven't. I've heard a lot of good things about it though. Personally, I loved it. It was hilarious. I really liked the whole comedic direction they went with. Anyway, keep the content flowing. Yeah, I've heard only good things about it so far. So I really do want to see it. There's a bunch of movies I want to see. I don't get out to the movie theaters very often just because little kids and all kind of makes it more difficult. I usually wait till something is out for rent. But I did hear it's good. TJ Doody. Hi Matt. I am really enjoying the Ixia campaign. It's the best one since Fayum. Thank you. My two closest Warhammer pals and I have been running a campaign since Fayum started. So far it has involved 3 missions between High Fleet Basilisk and my Black Wolf Company of Space Wolves. Both these armies are completely custom in their fluff. It adds an amazing amount of enjoyment to the game to make all your matches have a purpose. The next mission will be fun. A rogue rune priest in our last match used some chaos powers against the Tyranids. So some royally cheesed off Grey Knights with some Ultramarine backup are now on their way to Fenris to deal with the heretical Space Vikings. It should be a really fun match. Thanks for all the inspiration you give to our gaming, Tom. The narrative, playing 40k with its narrative, is the best way to play Warhammer 40k by far. Word 4. Hey Matt, have you ever considered playing a campaign that spans across a whole planetary system rather than on just one planet? Very much like Dawn of War, Warhammer 40k PC game. You could have it where each week the invading army chooses a planet to attack and have 2 battles to see if they can conquer the planet, with each planet conquered, subtracting resources from the defenders and adding them to the invaders. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks, Zach. I've thought of things like that, and I've wondered how it could work in the narrative campaigns that we do, because there's a difference between doing a narrative campaign with your friends and doing one that you record and put on the internet. Because with your friends, you can do whatever you want. You can be like, these 2 battles determine it, we have resources, we have a way to win and lose this. But with the ones that I've been doing, especially this latest one, I've been really focusing on trying to flesh out a story, something that makes you care about the characters. And so far it seems to be working. And so when all of a sudden you expand the scale of the campaign, it becomes harder to give more screen time to the characters. Like I'm even finding that with this narrative campaign, certain characters aren't getting lots of screen time. They're not getting a lot of bat rep time. So maybe over the following campaigns you'll see more of them and they'll get more developed. And then the story times I'm able to give more time and all of that. But if you go to a planetary or a system-wide invasion or a multi-system invasion, then you really lose the character. You're just at a grand scale. And that's not it is technically definitely a narrative campaign, because there's fluff to it, there's a story to it, even if you don't get to the characters. It's just I don't think it would be necessarily as interesting as a narrative campaign. Like we could do like a planetary wide, or not planetary wide, but like a system wide or multi-system wide campaign, and do that as a separate thing. And maybe that would be, maybe people would like to follow that and kind of follow who's winning. It's not just not like GM'd by one person, it's actually rules and everybody kind of plays competitively. But then it goes back to the whole competitive nature of it again too, unless you agree to do some narrative elements to it. So it definitely, scaling the game up definitely has its restrictions. Like it's just hard to do large scale stuff with any miniature war game, because the larger scale, the more miniatures. No matter how streamlined the rules are, if you've got more stuff on the table, obviously it takes longer. And so then you say, well, you could still break it up into smaller games, but then you have a lot of little games to try to represent the key parts and all the different battles and everything. Like I finished reading Necropolis from Gaunt's Ghost series not too long ago, and that was just one fight for one city. And the number of battle reports that you'd have to do to represent that fight, there's tons of them. Tons of little fights. A fight at this gate, a second fight at this gate, a third fight at this gate, a fight at this wall, a fight at this wall. There was the initial fight when they first got invaded. There's the fight later on where Gaunt's Ghosts infiltrate something. I'm not going to give anything away. But it's just, there's an entire narrative campaign, and it all happened at one hive. And that was a gigantic scale fight, like millions on each side. And it's just huge scale, but one city on one planet. So it was two cities fighting each other, but still, it's not even the entire planet. And you have that kind of scale. So you can only imagine what happens when you try to go into something larger than a planet. So that's why so far the campaigns have been on, smaller worlds, not like hive worlds or anything like that. Or at least you only see a portion of it. It is a cool concept though, and I'd love to run that like as a GM for a group of guys where it's not recorded, and so like it's okay if things aren't super balanced and all of that, and it doesn't work out the way you want to. Vespasian Flavian, hey Matt, smiley face. I just wanted to say on behalf of me and all the Vault members that it gives me a great feeling every time you thank us in a video. It's nice to know we're appreciated by you and the rest at Mini Wargaming. Thanks, man. Well, I do it honestly because without the Vault members, we wouldn't have the majority of our revenue. I think the number's around, I keep throwing out percentages, but I think it's actually around 80 or 85% of our revenue. I was looking at it not too long ago and recalculated in my mind what the actual amount was. But still, you take that away, and we wouldn't be able to function at all. Heck, you take half of it away and we wouldn't be able to function. And so we really do rely on Vault members. And so the fact that you're willing, because it's kind of this new area, this whole pay for entertainment that's not network TV or professionally made movies and stuff, or computer games. Like I remember when we first started the Vault, a lot of people, and I think people still say this, they're like, well, I shouldn't have to pay for this. It should be available for free. Why pay for content that I can get elsewhere for free? Well, first off, you can't get it for free because that battle report that's in the Vault is not available anywhere for free unless you find it illegally. But what they're saying is I can find other battle reports and all that. But really what it comes down to is it's not just us doing this anymore. Over the past couple of years, you've seen this, this huge surge of a few things like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, where independent person, and big companies can use it too, but a lot of smaller companies can get support from their audiences. And then you have things like Subbable or Patreon, where the subscribers can actually pay them just for their free stuff. They can be like, you know what, I'm just gonna subscribe just to support you, just for you to continue making free stuff. There's some little perks, but really the perks, it's not like the Vault where they're actually getting something of value for that money, not usually. And then you get things like Tabletop, Geek and Sundry. They put out all these tabletop. They were paid by Google to make these, but then when that contract ran out, they're like, what do we do? Well, they made a Kickstarter and raised over $1 million from their audience just so they could make another show for free. So, and the audience, the perks that they get is stuff that they really didn't need. It's not like these products where you're like, well, this will add some sort of collection thing. Like, they really just wanted to help Tabletop to be able to do another season. And then you have other people who are doing membership sites and stuff like that. And so it's really coming forward that people are starting to get that they need to support the content producers who are making enjoyable content for them on YouTube. And that's really changed over the past few years. Like when we started the Vault just a few years ago, that really didn't exist. Everybody who was making money on YouTube were the people who had millions of subscribers, and so therefore could make enough advertising revenue to support the 1 or 2 people who were involved in that. And that's as big as they could really get, because there just wasn't much more money than that. So now with the advent of all these different ways for the people watching these shows, they're more educated on the fact that, hey, this guy is making good content for me, but he's not making tons of money from ad revenue. So if I want him to make more content, then I got to pay. And so in a sense, even though it's on YouTube for free, I do need to pay for it. Otherwise, it's going to go away and I won't get anything. And so you get a certain percentage of your people who are watching your stuff for free support you, and that's what allows you to do what you're doing. And so that's what the Vault members are. That's what you guys are. So it takes a specific type of mindset to actually be willing to sign up for it. I'm hoping that the product itself can sell itself, like how many battle reports and painting tutorials are in there, but there's still that feeling of people put stuff on YouTube for free, so why are you charging me for this? And so the number one reason that we've been told, we've run surveys and everything, that our Vault members is to support us. And then secondarily, it's because they want the extra battle reports and all of that. So definitely, that's the feeling I get, which I have to thank you for. If we were just making this awesome product, which I hope that you find the Vault to be awesome, and everybody was buying it, then we could still thank our customers for that. But really, they're giving money for, like I'm hungry, I want a hamburger, and okay, here's this guy's making a hamburger. Here's money, and I'll take the hamburger. Yes, the guy making that hamburger should be thankful for that customer. But in the end, the customer, he gave money, he got a hamburger, he got what he needed, and he went on. With entertainment, it's not that clear. It's not like, oh, all my needs are being met now. So it's really a voluntary thing. It's not like a bill that you pay, a utility where you need electricity. This is an optional thing in your life, and you're choosing to support it, and so we thank you for it. Hopefully that wasn't too long a ramble. Oh, and by the way, love the new campaign and everything you do. My one request would be more Tactica videos, specifically for Space Marines, but I get it that you need to play games with them first before you can give strategy. Thanks, Matt. You and the guys rock. Meckler89. Matt, I would totally paint up a mini to add to an army liked from the comment of last week's Sit and Talk. I think it is a very good idea and would love to see it. I think it's a good idea too. Where's a pen? Let me just write that down. I gotta remember that idea. Demidos, or Demidos. Hey Matt, oh wait, I just remembered I didn't turn off my phone, but I'll turn it off if it rings. Hey Matt, a few questions. Having been a long-term Vault member since 2009, 5 years, or almost 5 years if it was later in 2009, but around 5 years. That's ridiculously awesome. I must say that there is some content that I missed, namely the pie plate challenge that Dave had. What happened with that? He still kind of randomly does the pie plate challenge with Banter Bat Reps. I don't know why he stopped to do it, to be honest. Maybe he just grew tired of it. He'd done it for so long. Also, the types of movies that were completely unrelated to mini wargaming, but more about fun and pranks. Like when Dave pie plated you 10 times in all kinds of ways. How come we don't see those kind of movies anymore? You're going to see more of them. Like in the past week, I think we've recorded 3 Life of a Wargamers, that kind of stuff. So you're going to see more of that. But those are all random, like just kind of spur of the moment stuff. So there's no schedule with that. And then we found the things that really make. Let me answer your question actually more thoroughly than that. Basically, what we've done over the past 7 years almost is kind of evolved in a sense in the way that what content we produce. And the reason for that is, this is actually, I believe this is, no, I know this is the way that a lot of even TV networks work. Like I remember going on iTunes once and you could actually search for shows by network. And so like I went on the Discovery Channel and there was a ton of shows on there. And amongst all these shows, the majority of them, I would say 2/3 of them, only ever had 1 season. And then there was some of them that were on their 2nd or 3rd season. And then there was those very few that had more than that. And then there was even fewer that had like 10+ seasons. Things like Survivor. have like tons of seasons, or what was the other one? There was a couple other ones. Mythbusters, I think, was one of them that had tons of seasons. Some of those older shows that just really caught on. And so what you're seeing there is kind of what we have done, except we kind of did it accidentally. We didn't do it with such a purpose as they did. When they do a show, usually they have to be done a full season before it's even produced, or at least a good chunk of the season before it's actually being put out. And so they invest a lot of time and money and resources to making a show that they don't even know is necessarily going to work. So they have that disadvantage. They got to put a lot of money into it. Now they have the advantage of making tons of money from being a network TV show, channel, and so that they can kind of outweigh those costs and all that. But with us, we have the advantage that we have a much quicker response time, because we have a quicker turnaround time for when we record, edit, and upload a video, and getting feedback of whether people like that. And feedback is not just in the sense of comments, because people will say one thing but do other things. Like, for example, we'll find out a lot of people complain about certain content and pushing them into the vault, but a lot of people sign up to the vault. Whereas another piece of content, people are just putting all sorts of good comments, but nobody's signing up for the vault. And so really in the end, you have to look at the results of what it's pushing them to do, rather than necessarily what they're saying. Usually you use the comments to try to figure out why people are acting the way they are, not the other way around. You don't read the comments and say, okay, now they're gonna act this way. You instead look at the numbers. You look at the number of views and shares and likes and vault signups because of the video. And then you say, okay, why are they acting this way? If whether it's good or bad, we can look at the comments and see, okay, if let's say it's good, let's see what people are commenting on. We can get a good idea of what they're really liking. And if it's bad, we can look and see what they're really not liking. And so over the years, we've done a lot of different types of shows, some which catch on and some which don't. Some which we find have a higher production cost and some which are less. And so it's kind of evolved that we've found the things that work. Like battle reports are the obvious one that we do tons of. That's probably our bread and that is our bread and butter. And now narrative campaigns. But narrative, if you think about it, narrative campaigns was a relatively new thing. We've had people asking us to do narrative campaigns for quite a while. And I just couldn't see how to do them and make them work until I finally said, okay, no, stuff it. I'm not going to try to make the battle reports, the narrative campaigns be all narrative-y, meaning like where the camera shots, like you basically take the people out of the equation and it's all about the story. I'm just going to let them be battle reports that have a reason for them. And then we'll have the story times be more narrative-y. And that's when I finally said, okay, we'll try it like that. And that really worked and people really liked it. And so we've experimented with that. But if that first campaign had only had moderately good response, we probably wouldn't have done another one. We would have been like, okay, people don't really care too much for this. Let's just keep doing our regular battle reports because they're working. So that's why you don't see certain of the older shows, because as much as you might like them, or a small group of people might like them, some of them are more like cult classics kind of movies, where you get this loud group of minority who really say they like it, and so it gives this illusion that it would actually be mainstream, and that's just not the case. And then there's also like this, sometimes we're just poorly organized and we do videos and we don't actually track them properly, and then we just don't do them. I'm not going to say that we do all this really systematically and perfectly. It's almost like, it's more like what's called the spaghetti test. If you want to know if your spaghetti's ready, apparently, I don't ever do this, but you throw it against the wall, and if it sticks, it's actually ready. And so the spaghetti test is, let's try this. Did it stick? Nope. Okay, well, let's not do that again. Let's try this. Oh, it stuck. Okay, let's keep doing that. So, that's why it has changed over the time. Demidos continues, what happened to Papa Smurf? It was the time when he was working for us, we had to downsize just with a lot of different things changing, and so we weren't able to keep him. That's what it came to. Obviously, we didn't part on bad terms. He is Dave's dad, after all. I've glimpsed him working on your new studio, but how come he don't make any movies anymore? Well, he's also actually a construction worker by trade, so that's why he was working on that. I personally enjoyed watching them and the story that came with them. I agree. But it's one of those, once again, where people liked them, but there wasn't enough of a response, coupled with the fact that we had to downsize, and so he was the latest person we added, so he had to be the first to go, unfortunately. And finally, at what age do you think someone should start with, say, 40K as a hobby? I would say it depends on their maturity, but the number that comes to my mind is 10 to 12. Could have at least silenced it. Come on, silence it. There we go. I'd say 10 to 12 seems to kind of sit well. It also depends on what you're getting into. If you're just playing the game, you know, that's not a big deal. If you're trying to get them into the lore and stuff, well, that's a little darker. You might want to wait till they're older. But the game-wise, Yeah, 10 to 12 seems appropriate. If you want to do it earlier than that, it all depends on what their interest is. Joe46. Hey Matt, I was wondering if there was more Mini Wargaming Imperial Guard players coming to work at Mini Wargaming because I've only seen a few. Well, we don't technically have any Imperial Guard players. Steve learned the Imperial Guard for our campaign, but he's also learned the Eldar for our campaigns. He's learned the Imperial Knights for our campaign. But he's not like an Imperial Guard player. His first army was Necrons, I believe. Not on my blank. I'm not going to say the whole name. Why is Gimli the only dwarf in the Lord of the Rings trilogy? And what is your opinion on curse words? I can see how those two questions are totally related. Why is Gimli the only dwarf in the Lord of the Rings trilogy? Same reason that Legolas is the only elf, because when it was written, it's about them going through the human realm. The elves at the time were kind of elsewhere, and the dwarves were all kind of in their place. It was more about the humans and elves and their interactions and all of that, and so most of the travel was through that. Well, Legolas wasn't the only elf. I know there was like Rivendell, and then in the movies there was the elves coming to help at Helm's Deep and everything. But it's because the author wrote it that way. What's my opinion on curse words? They're bad and shouldn't say them. That's my opinion. Bad Moons. Any plans for more X-Wing related content? I imagine there hasn't really been a large demand for it on the website, but with the movies coming out soon, I believe its popularity is going to explode. We'd love to see some bat reps with the new Tantive 4 ship, and would be perfect for some narrative stuff. Well, it's funny because you posted this, and then this week we actually posted some X-Wing battle reports with the Tantive 4 ship. That's the Rebel Corvette. Plans for it? No plans yet. That was just kind of random. Somebody wanted to come in and play, so I said sure. It's funny, I put that battle report up. It was on the Wednesday. And without saying it, people are picking up on the schedule that we're keeping, because somebody complained saying, I get that you want to do X-Wing, but that means one less 40K battle report for me to watch. And then somebody else pointed out, they're like, this has been posted on a Wednesday. They don't post 40K battle reports on Wednesdays, they post them on Mondays. And that second person is totally right. That Wednesday is our random day. It's like our Infinity and Ask a Wargamer and Life of a Wargamer and X-Wing. And so it did not change how many 40K videos were going out, because they go out every Monday, and then the narrative one on Thursday. But no, we have no plans for X-Wing at the moment. I'm not saying that we're not going to cover it. We're just, at this point, we have no plans. But it is true that with the new Star Wars movies coming out, it's possible that it'll pick up in popularity. But in the end, I don't really care about the popularity of the movies. I care about the popularity of the game. That would motivate me more. So if the Star Wars movies cause this game to become more popular, then that might be something that would motivate us. Woodrow Wimpy. Hey, dear Matt, were you inspired by John Deere equipment when you selected the Mini Wargaming Marine color scheme? I've seen people comment on that. No, it's based on our logo. Our logo is that yellow, and our website has the green in it. So it's actually just the kind of the Mini Wargaming brand colors. I realize now that it looks like John Deere as well. So Swing. Maybe Dark Eldar could be done if lore-wise they're just Eldar pirates looking for supplies, loot, and plunder. So yeah, I could see it working that way, but like I said, I'm not excited. I wouldn't be excited to do that, so I just wouldn't expect it. Nevius. Just an idea. Sit and talk titles are interesting, then much more info in the video. Possible to divide sit and talks into smaller vids that talk mostly about title subject. 45+ minutes is quite long to wade through. No possibility. This show is just an hour-long video where you ask me anything and I answer. So it's meant to be something that you can just kind of turn on and start painting, kind of like a podcast or something like that, where it's like or a radio show, but without the professionalism of a radio show or having more than one host. So it's just really a show where I answer questions. It's just evolved from the jog and vlog back in the days when I was doing my weight loss challenge. Then it turned into a walk and talk because I didn't like jogging anymore. And then I stopped doing that and it became a sit and talk. So it's just really a casual show the sit and talk FAQs are probably going to be the biggest thing I'll do with it, where I chunk out little parts so that frequently asked questions get put out for other people to see. And it also helps promote this show too. Necronomicon. Does anyone at Mini Wargaming have a Vindicar or Evisor Assassin model in their collection? It's funny that you should ask that. We just got a box that has one of each or two of each in it right now, because I am building up. Well, is that this phone right here? Oh, somebody else's phone. that is something I'm building up for a possible campaign, narrative campaign with an Inquisitor being the main character for it. So have to wait and see for that. Algerdus. As a Dark Eldar player, I don't mind that Mini Wargaming is not going to make a Dark Eldar campaign. I understand that Matt wants his channel to be family friendly. As long as they will be doing Tyranids, Tau, Space Wolves, Mini Wargaming Chapter, Orcs, Necrons, Astra Militarum, Imperial Knights, Inquisition, Eldar, Dark Angels, Chaos, Blood Angels, and Sisters of Battle campaigns, it's okay with me. Especially with great guys like Steve, Andy, and Cody Rue. Mini Wargaming, keep up the good work. You will see those. Flesh Prison 17 is in Roman numerals, so I had to look at it. Can you guys do another epic gunfight like in the Life of Wargamer? Please and thank you. No promises, but we'll see. I think actually those guns all got thrown out. They were in storage, and I think they accidentally got thrown out. A railgun. Hello, Matt. I was curious, why haven't you guys done an app for Android or Apple yet? Well, because we don't really need to. What we need is a mobile-friendly website. That's more what would be important. Because if you think about it, what would the app be? It would be a way for you to see our videos. Well, our website does that. It's just not very super phone-friendly. It's fine on a tablet. You can zoom in, and you can click on stuff, and it works. It doesn't need Flash, so it works on Apple. So if we can make a mobile-friendly website, that would do it. An app would be good too, but it's just money-wise, it doesn't make sense for us to do it. Not yet. Colossus. Hey Matt, you forgot to mention that the Necrons don't have to be those that have personality. The old Crons are still The old Crons are still out there, and there are still unaccounted for Catan, possibly ruling over these metal Tyranids, as you called it. Exactly. You kind of do whatever you want. Updating them and making them more human like that, like let them have the best of both worlds. P.S. Can you do me a favor and start calling it Stranglethorn Cannon? I know, I keep calling it Stranglehorn Cannon. I already slipped up and called it a Stranglehorn earlier, thanks. Somebody pointed out that in a comment, Stranglethorn. I'm like, seriously? Have I been getting it wrong all this time? And I looked at it, I'm like, there is a T! It's a Stranglethorn Cannon. So I'll try to remember that. VMFL, Vault Member for Life. Awesome. Thank you, Colossus. Atelia. Hey, Matt, have you considered building up an Adeptus Mechanicus army? Not only are they a very cool army to play, but I imagine it would also provide several possibilities for narratives. Is there an Adeptus Mechanicus Codex? What would an Adeptus Mechanicus army be? I don't think there's a codex for it, not even a digital supplement or something. Anybody know? Anybody listening? No, nobody's overhearing this. Adeptus Mechanicus. No, so I don't know. I didn't even know they had a codex if they have one.
Forge World has them in their books.
Oh, Forge World has it?
Yeah, they have models for them.
And there's an actual Forge World codex of sorts for them?
I don't know if they have a proper army list, but yeah.
Cool.
It's more like the pre-heresy stuff.
Because Adeptus Mechanicus, it's just the guys in charge of the technology, right?
Yeah,
the one,
they have their own standing armies.
Yeah. But they would just be a lot of the same stuff from Space Marines.
No, it's all crazy crap.
Really?
Because they play with ancient technology.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, I haven't. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. Jetham, hey Matt, just wondering if we'll see any more Minecraft Let's Play from you and Holly. I wouldn't hold your breath. Kind of got bored of it. They're what got me interested in the server to begin with, and I miss watching them to pump me up about building stuff there and participating in challenges and what have you. Yeah, I said right from the beginning that we're just going to do those for as long as they were fun, and they stopped being fun, so I stopped doing them. Not that anybody did anything to make them not fun. I just got bored. We played a lot of Minecraft, you got bored. You're allowed to stop doing a hobby when you no longer find it interesting. I always find it interesting when somebody says, I don't really feel like painting or playing. Like, what can I do to motivate myself? It's like, well, don't paint or play. Just go do something else and come back to it later if you want to. It's a hobby. If it's not relaxing, if you have to force yourself to do it, then it kind of defeats the purpose. MPC 2163, thanks to you and your pro-Tyranid stance, I now find myself about to collect them. I swore that Imperial Guard would be my only army. Then I got Space Marines, and then Dark Eldar, and then Necrons, and then Chaos, then Tau, and then Imperial Knights. On a more serious note, watching you all has inspired me to actually get out and play 40K regularly. My painting skills have improved exponentially as well. That's great. I think it all started from a video of you spray painting asteroids in the middle of a blizzard. I remember that. You all rock. And Bob Joy, hi Matt. I would love to see the Mini Wargaming staff playing Dreadball Ultimate. Please consider it. I doubt you'll see us play any more Dreadball. We did that league. And by the end of it, I was bored of it. I'll be honest. I'm sure that I know the first season had a lot of flaws and they did a lot of extra stuff with all the other seasons, but I'm just not interested in it. So that's going to be the real reason that it doesn't happen. And is it possible to get Steve to do a review of the Astra Militarum Codex? Oh, it's always possible. I don't know if you'll see it though. And I'm looking forward to every campaign episode like a kid in Christmas. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Sparkman28. Hi Matt, I've read the Codex and supplement for the Imperial Knights. It's definitely going to be my next buy for my Space Marines. However, I'm not a competitive player and don't really like bringing cheese list. Do you think it's unfair to be able to bring such a destructive force if you have nothing to take it down? No and yes. The Imperial Knight is probably one of the really better balanced large creations of Games Workshop. Like the Riptide and the, what's the Grey Knight one? Oh, the Dread Knight. I found that when those were brought into a game for their points value, they were very, very powerful. Whereas an Imperial Knight is powerful, but is very expensive. And so, like, you can bring 2 Riptides for the price of 1 Imperial Knight. And we all know, at least anybody who's played against Tau, know how powerful 2 Riptides can be. An Imperial Knight does not dish out the same amount of damage. Like, sure, in close combat it's got its destroyer weapon, but that's if you get there against the right target. So, I love the Imperial Knights for that reason. Like, they're good, they've got some good firing capability, they got good close combat capability, but their points also balance them out nicely. Now, bringing it in, the reason I say yes is because if you play against a player who doesn't have, like if you're up against Tyranids, for example, and they don't know you're bringing one, then they're going to have a hard time dealing with it, because I have found from experience that the only real way to deal with these armor 13 walkers like the Imperial Knight or the Morkanaut or Gorkanaut is with the Carnifex with Crushing Claws, or like a Turvagon with Crushing Claws. And so you don't have as many things that can really deal with it. Sure, you have your Warp Lance and stuff, but that's not reliable for taking down a super heavy, where you actually have to knock out all the hull points in order to destroy it. And so if your opponent doesn't really know, and they don't normally have the anti-armor capability to take on armor 13 with 4+ invulnerable saves, then you might want to warn them. And that's where it can be cheesy, is just like anything else. It's like, are flyers cheesy? No, they're not. But if you bring them and your opponent doesn't have anything to counter them, they're sure going to feel that way. So you just have to, you got to play it friendly. You got to kind of have agreements. Like, is it okay if I bring an Imperial Knight? Is it okay if I bring 3? Or can I bring an entire army of Imperial Knight Titans? And then you can have some fun games with that. Also, have you heard or have read the Kill Team campaign that Herald of Ruin has created? No. It revolves around small kill teams that have their own bases. With each successful mission or objective completed, points are awarded, which can be used to upgrade your current characters or add more to your team. It's played alongside the usual rules and codexes. That might work with some of the smaller story-driven battle reports for campaigns. Thanks again, and keep up the great work. Raydetto. Hey Matt, thanks to you all on Mini Wargaming staff for the great site. You're welcome, and thank you. My question is, have you ever traveled to some weird place where you never expected to see any wargaming, but found some people playing? I don't do a lot of traveling, so I'm going to have to say no. I've been to Tahiti as a missionary for my church, but I never saw any wargaming played there. So, yeah, no, never saw any tabletop. I didn't even see like board games played there, but that doesn't mean that they didn't have it. I just never saw it. I'm assuming you have. Plasma Kid. Matt, thanks for reading my comment about a megalith. I'm actually working on my own. Anyway, 3 questions for you. 1, what do you look for in commissioned painters? I want to apply. You got to be able to paint well and have a half-decent turnaround time. That's really it. 2, do you want a new Necron model? Like new to the Codex, or like you're going to paint something up and send it to me? And the answer to that question would be sure, and sure. What do I think the Necrons are lacking? I don't really think that there's any specific area that they lack tactically or strategically. So I'm not quite sure what that new unit would be. 3, you said that this wargaming isn't your life yet. Here you are, oh, sorry. You said that this wargaming isn't your life, yet here you are with your business centered around it. Is that a question? That is correct. The business is a big chunk of my life. I'm surrounded by it. I got into it and then started a business around it, but it's what is your life? How do you define it? We're not defined necessarily by what we do for a living, although it's easy to label that way. Because I see myself in a lot of different ways, obviously, like family and church and my friends and my work. These are all big parts of my life. Actually, well, the biggest part would be the 3: family, church, and my work occupy the majority of my time when I'm not sleeping. So yeah, so so I can say honestly, wargaming isn't my life. It's my work at this point. I love it, I enjoy it. But to be honest, if I wasn't doing it for business, then I've said this before, I probably wouldn't actually do it as a hobby. Not because I don't enjoy it, but because I just wouldn't have the time for it. So So I totally understand when people are like, I just don't have time for this hobby. I'm too busy with this or with family or whatever. It's like, yeah, well, it's a hobby. So you gotta, it's only if you want to and you have time for it. Well, C01. Hey, Matt, what's happening with your personal vlog that you were going to start? I know. I've said like 3 weeks ago I was going to start it. I just haven't had the time to do it. And I've also been finding that the questions people have been asking, I've been able to answer here. Because it's not like I'm not going to talk religion on here. It's just more like the really, really controversial subjects I wanted to not include in this show just because it got a little too far. And I didn't enjoy that because it just, people misunderstand too easily when you just only have a moment to explain it rather than another place. But I really do need to do that other one too. So I don't know what to say other than, sorry, I haven't got it started yet. But if you have any questions for me, please email me. If you have any like religious questions that you don't feel comfortable asking on the show and you really are curious about, and I'll be happy to respond. I respond to every email that's not just antagonistic about my religion and my beliefs. And I'll give you honest answers and we can have discussions, whatever you want to do. It might not be replying really quickly. It might take me a few days because I'd like to be able to sit down and have time to do it. But I will reply. Emerald Archer, have you ever considered offering the sit and talk videos as a podcast? I love watching them, but it would be much more convenient to be able to listen to without sitting in front of the computer or iPad. Yeah, people keep asking for that. And honestly, the only reason I haven't done it yet is because I don't immediately know how to do it, which means I have to actually set aside some time to do it, which means I then forget about it. And they just kind of get put up as usual. I know it's not hard to make a podcast. It's just, right now I don't know how to do it. So if I knew how to do it, I'd be like, okay, I'll just go and set it up. There we go, it's a podcast. But really I just have to figure out how to do it. Peter Gooding, hi Matt, a question about tables. How many gaming tables do you actually have at Mini Wargaming? 6 or 7, I would say. Some use way more than others. I myself have made one using the tips from one of your videos. I enjoyed it so much that I'm probably going to make another. I must also say that I'm tempted by these gaming mats, like the ones you recently acquired. Would you recommend them? Strongly recommend them. The ones from frontlinegaming.org, and I'm not strongly recommending them right now because they gave them to us for free to show them off in the videos. Honestly, 100% right now, I would, they're just perfect for the wargamer who doesn't have room to make several 4x6 or 6x4 wooden tables. Instead, you just have to make one, so it's a frame for it or have a place to put it, and you just buy these gaming mats. They're not cheap. They're like 80 bucks plus heavy shipping because they come in a very large package, but they are so awesome. Such high quality. They look so fantastic. So that's what I would recommend doing. Nalzi, I don't really like the one-man stores. I know GW staff can be a bit pushy, but now it's a real get in, hand over your cash and get out. Nothing personal or customer friendly. Big mistake in my opinion, as customers spend less in that environment, even veterans, as they might not get to talk about rules or new releases with staff, no impulse buys. See, this is what I'm talking about. We don't know really the numbers behind everything. Like, you can look at the reports all you want, but when you switch to a one-man store that's no longer in a mall, their lease goes down huge. Like when you're in a mall, like in St. Catharines, here near where I live, which is not going to be like the same as like in Toronto or something where it's a much higher cost. I was at my barber's, I was asking him how much he pays, and it ended up being something like $60 or $70 a square foot. And that is huge. And it gets more expensive the closer you get to the food court. So when you look at the Games Workshop store, paying $60 or $70 a square foot and having 3 or 4 staff, a couple of them being full-time, you have to sell a lot of product to make up for that. You drop down to going into a plaza, which is going to be like a fraction of that, like $15 to $20 a square foot, maybe 25 or 30, but it's going to be a fraction of what they used to pay. And you go from having the equivalent of 3 full-time employees to 1 full-time employee, then your sales can drop quite a bit. And you can still make more money. Now, I talked about in my one video about how you don't want your sales to drop overall because you need those players because it's a niche hobby, so you can't just be the smaller store and all that. But that's a whole other reason. Is it a mistake for them to do that? Well, we'll find out. I really have to wait for a few years of that being that way. Because right now they're cutting their costs and that keeps them profitable, and so despite their numbers going down, they are still profitable. And that's the #1 thing you need as a business. Excuse me. Imperator Andreas, I'm trying really hard to understand what is the Tyranid thing behind you. Well, it's not behind me now. Last week, was it the terrain? If it was that terrain, those spires and stuff that were there, then that was the new Tyranid terrain from MicroArt Studios. I don't even know if it's released yet. They sent it to me to show off in some videos. So MicroArt Studios they do some like battle foam terrain, and it's really cool looking stuff. I'm trying to get them to send me more so I can make like a whole table worth of it. So that's from MicroArt Studio. Red Raptor, what time are we? Have 45 minutes. Okay, Red Raptor. Hi Matt, I'm curious. Would you consider doing different scenarios for your beat map bat reps apart from the missions found in the rulebook? Yes and no. The reason I say yes is sure, of course I'd be willing to do it, but it's hard to because they're just kind of pickup games. The guy gets there and we just kind of get into the game. We don't spend a lot of time preparing for it because we're on a time schedule to get it done. And there's no way around that. That's just the way it has to be because we have to be able to get these done. And so bringing in another scenarios, that means I have to learn them, which means I have to research them beforehand, which is possible. If there's something that's popular enough that people really want to see, then I would do that. I asked because my friends at a local games workshop have discovered the awesomeness that comes with playing Zone Mortalis scenarios. Okay, that's an exception to this, because we do have a Zone Mortalis board, and we have just started doing battle reports on it. So lucky for you, we are going to start doing that. Essentially, it's a 500-point kill team fought in the confines of a massive space hulk. It gets your heart pumping with excitement even as a spectator seeing 5 Terminators holding their ground against an advanced single file of kill cans in the cramped corridors. Just a thought for a different flavor as I noticed the regularity of 1,500 to 2,000 point games. I was excited when Dave announced his deathmatch videos, but sadly they are far and few between. Yeah, no, you're going to see more of that. We've already, I think in the past week, we've filmed like 3 or 4 of them, so you're going to start seeing those sprinkled in with everything else. Ash2532, hi, I'm Matt, a new UK Vault member here. You guys are awesome, or you're awesome. Your battle report with Dave, your first 7th edition battle made me join. Will you and Dave ever do a narrative campaign with Dave's Tyranids versus Chaos? Meaning I have Tyranids, he has Chaos. I don't know if it's hard to say. We do have plans for a campaign together, but it's not Chaos versus Tyranids. I'm just going to leave it at that. I just started a Chaos army as already having Nids with Khorne units. Do you think are a good unit to use other than Berserkers? As in building a World Eater army. Ooh, I can't do Chaos Tactica. Don't really know enough about it. You should go on Dave's Shrine of Chaos, which is every other Thursday at 3 o'clock normally. You can ask him there. Also, will you ever do 30K battle reports? Keep up the good work. Once again, we have no plans right now, but that doesn't mean we won't ever do them. Spari20, why do you dislike Dark Eldar? When you said it'll never happen, you seem quite serious. Did I do an FAQ on this yet? Let me check, because I've been asked that question a lot. I have my list of FAQs right here. I know I'm a little off camera, but that's okay, because the show is just supposed to be straightforward. Nope, I haven't done one. Okay. Let me just mark down the time. 47:30. Ready? It's time for another Sit and Talk FAQ. This is the little mini show where I answer a frequently asked question on my Sit and Talk hour-long show, which you might be watching right now. But if you want to watch the Sit and Talk hour-long show, it'll be a link in the video description to that show where you can ask me anything. So the question today is from Spari20. Why do you dislike Dark Eldar? So I've been asked this a lot. The main reason I dislike Dark Eldar is because of their lore. Now, 40K, I know, is a dark, grim future. Or grim, dark future would be more appropriate. Everything's gothic, everything is full of skulls, everybody's dying, war is everywhere, and it'll always be that way, and humanity is on the cusp of who knows what, from chaos, or being eaten by Tyranids, or being taken over by Necrons, or orcs causing problems somewhere. So it's a very unhappy future that makes for ridiculously awesome narrative and lore opportunities for huge epic-sized campaigns. The Dark Eldar, however, to me, go a little too far. They're just a little too hedonistic, I guess, is the way you want to look at it. I'm not going to explain everything I don't like about Dark Eldar here because just by virtue of what it is that they do, it's not even something I want to talk about on the video. But if you know anything about the Dark Eldar lore, then you know what I'm talking about. Basically, I'd rather be captured alive by a Tyranid hive and slowly digested into genetic material than be captured by Dark Eldar. Let me just put it that way. I'd rather become like a psyker who's captured by the black ships or the black fleet and taken back and have to pray to keep the Astronomicon going until my brain is burnt out than be captured by the Dark Eldar. I'd rather be taken prisoner by the orcs and made a slave for the rest of my life than be captured by the Dark Eldar. Their stuff is a little too dark, it's just not something I just find no interest in that in a narrative sense. And the few times I played against them, they've destroyed my Tyranids. So that kind of made me like, I don't like these guys. But that's not the reason. I'll play against them. We will still have them in battle reports. People are more than welcome to challenge us with their Dark Eldar, but you probably won't see any Dark Eldar narrative campaigns. I say probably because I never know what'll happen, what kind of spin we can give them that kind of doesn't cover any of those horrible, horrible, horrible things that they do to people that they capture. But thankfully, though, it doesn't really matter because a lot of people don't really play the Dark Eldar. There's those few people who are like, I want Dark Eldar stuff. And it's like, well, you're just a few people. So thankfully, it's not like I don't like Space Marines, and therefore you're never going to see Space Marine stuff. So that is why I don't like Dark Eldar. Spari 20. I think that was her name, I think. And FAQ. 5020. Okay, so there we go. I get asked that probably once every other week, so I think it's about time that I answer that. Rudy, hey Matt, I have 2 questions for you. I know 40K is your favorite war game, so if you didn't work for mini wargaming, that means you didn't have to make battle reports for your viewers. Would you still play other games besides 40K? I kind of answered that question already. And if let's say I was into the hobby, I don't know. I think I'd be one of those people that kind of moves from game to game because I'll get bored of one and want to move on to another. X-Wing was so much fun to learn, but after a while I got bored of it. War Machine has been fun. So yeah, I think I'd still play 40K, and I'd probably play other games as well. I'd probably be like a multi-gamer. Philosophical or religious question for you. Feel free to answer or transfer it to your other upcoming show. I read this previously, so I will answer it here because it's an interesting question. I think I remember that you have said you don't believe that God has created the world, the universe in 7 days. Correct. Because science has a much more convincing, approved theory about how the universe is formed. That's not exactly the reason, but it helps. Like I don't think that the Bible is saying that it was created in 7 days. I know people say, well, it says 7 days, but there's other stuff I could go into, but I won't bother. Because if we think about it, the world didn't create what was even a day, so it's more just a representation. I think that is symbolic about the world being created and not literally, that he just like, let there be light, let there be a world, let there be animals. I really don't believe that's what it was. But he also said something like, God created the Big Bang, so in the end, God still created everything. I didn't say that either. I said that the theories that science has created, to me, are possible theories is the way that science works, and that God is all-knowing and all-powerful, meaning that he knows everything about science and knows how to manipulate it and use it and to build stuff. Kind of like, if you look at it, well, my dad's a contractor, so this is the construction comes to my mind, that he knows how to take materials and put them together in a certain way, following certain rules. I don't mean rules like the laws of the land. I mean like, if you don't support this thing right, it'll fall down. And he knows how to build a house, or build an addition, or whatever happens to be. So he has knowledge that allows him to create things. And so to me, that's just what God is, except in an infinitely larger scale. Which makes sense in principle, meaning that he created everything if he created the Big Bang. But a few centuries ago, most Christian people actually believed that God had created the earth in 7 days because science couldn't prove the opposite at that time. I agree, but you have to remember, we can't lump all Christian people together. The church I go to, for example, has a belief that the church was actually lost for the knowledge of the truth and all that was lost for a long time during what we call the Dark Ages, and that knowledge has been restored. So yeah, it's different. You can't just lump everything together like that for that. I'm not offended or anything. A few decades from now on, science may have an explanation of what actually triggered the Big Bang. Then Christians probably will say something like, but God is responsible for what was before the Big Bang, or God had arranged the fundamental physical constants in a way that made it possible that a universe like we know it can exist in the first place, and so on. True? My point is, religious people, not necessarily Christians, always seem to search for some phenomenon that science cannot explain yet to justify the existence of something like God. I hope I haven't offended you or anybody else by this statement, so what do you think about that? It's a very legitimate point. And I like the question, but what it basically is that we as human beings always, we search for things, or we kind of, how do I put this? When we have a certain viewpoint, like politics is a really good example of this. If you try to talk to somebody who is really conservative or really liberal, or somebody like a minimum wage. Should minimum wage be increased or decreased, or should the government have any say at all? Should it be public health care or private health care? What you'll find is people on both sides of the fence will cite their studies and their examples, whether anecdotal or actually like done in a good way, of why they're right and the other side is wrong. And what people often do is, if they get really stuck in a certain position, they'll take any information that comes in about that. If it's for what they're saying, they'll grab onto that and they'll use it for other people to be like, see, I was right. But any information that comes in and supposedly disproves what they have, they'll just throw away, and for whatever reason, they'll come up with an excuse to not accept that. We do that with all sorts of stuff. And I'm not even talking about religion. I'm just talking about life in general, with our views. That's why we like being around people with our views, because then we can just kind of commiserate, or whatever you want to call it. And so that happens both with religious people and scientists as well. And when I say a scientist, because scientists can be religious people, there's huge overlap there. But I mean like somebody who believes God doesn't exist, and then somebody that believes God does exist. If you want to put those two in some vague, very, very, very general categories, that you will get religious people who will just kind of shut their ears to what scientists are saying because they don't like it. And then they'll have those spiritual experiences in their lives that to them prove God exists. And then you have the exact opposite with the people who don't believe in God. They'll close their ears to the spiritual experiences that happen in their lives, and they'll only accept the scientific stuff. Well, I don't believe either of those sides are doing what they should be doing, and that there is a combination that works together. Like I've seen people say, well, logic and faith just don't go together. Well, it's not true, because it's not, I mean, meaning that they can't coexist is what it said, not that they can't go together. It's just there are two different sides of it. And so for me, what's been given to us from God is how we should live, and the principles and stuff that allow us to become more like Him. And then we have our science that allows us to learn more about how the world works and everything. But none of it ever disproves the existence of God, because you can't disprove something that actually exists. I know people will not necessarily agree with that, but that's fine. But it's more just a sense that that He never really revealed how He made the world, because it's not necessary stuff for Him to reveal and tell us, because it's just not pertinent to living the lives that we need to. Instead, He allows that to be discovered through scientists and other stuff like that. And so to me, it's just like, well, I didn't need to put that knowledge in the Bible or in other scriptures or through prophets, because it wasn't pertinent. Like, what you need to know is about morals and principles and commandments and stuff like that, so that you can live to the fullest potential of your life. And so to me, that's why, for me, it's like, oh, we learned this new scientific thing. Okay, well, maybe that explains how God is. It's not so much like just trying to find some background to it, but more just like I have this strong belief that has been confirmed to me in so many different spiritual ways. And so when I see the scientific stuff, I find it really interesting. And I find it to be insightful more into the universe. And the more I learn about how the universe works, the more I'm in awe at the laws of nature and all of that. And for me, the more it seems obvious that they can't have just happened by chance. And I know that people will have different opinions on that, and that's fine. We're allowed to all have our opinions on that. And some will cite the whole multiverse thing, where, well, then there's like an infinite number of universes where it didn't work, and it worked only in this one. And that's once again just reaching for an explanation beyond the facts that are actually there. So it's the same thing. So really, we see it happen on both sides, is all I'm trying to say. Is that you have the people, the religious side, who could believe whatever. It doesn't matter what denomination, or Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever. And that close off their minds to other things and only accept evidence of what they have. And then you have the other side, the other extreme, that don't believe in God whatsoever, and they close off to any evidence of that. And I find myself in the middle, that where I can believe in God and I love science at the same time, and it totally reconciles to me, and I don't have any problem with that. So, which a lot of people do, though, because once again, they go on one extreme or the other. Wow. My throat is really, really dry, so I've got to take a drink. See, told you we can still talk about religion on the show. Because to me, as controversial as that is, hopefully you can see that, you know, there's no hating going on there. There's no being unreasonable or anything like that. Whereas other things that we've covered before, it's very, very very easy for people to misunderstand what I'm trying to say. Even that, I'm sure some people will misunderstand what I was saying, not because they're unintelligent or anything, but because I can only explain in a short period of time an entire way that I think and a way that I believe. And that even evolves over time too, as I've learned over time. When I was a kid, I saw Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I didn't see it, but I heard about it. And then I found out later on that when it said multicolored coat, or whatever it was in the Old Testament, that it actually didn't mean that it was multicolored. At first I rejected that. I'm like, no, you're wrong. It was technicolored. And I just had to realize that, no, I just had to change the interpretation I had of that. And that's a childish example, but it still illustrates what I'm talking about, that over time I've learned more about all these different things. Like at first when I heard the Big Bang Theory, I'm like, no, that can't be right. But then I kind of came to realize, I'm like, well, wait, why can't it be right? What is it that I've been taught that is against that? And it's nothing I've been taught is against that. So it totally can fit within my belief structure. So, and I encourage other people to look into that kind of thing where they can, well, I don't even know what I'm encouraging right there. Just that's what I think of the matter. That's where I'll leave that. So thank you for all your questions. It's been a little over an hour, so I'm going to stop right here. Thanks for watching the Sit and Talk. Please leave your questions and comments below for next week's, and of course I will hopefully answer them. I think I only got through half of these ones, but that's usually what happens. This is Matthew from Many Wargaming. Happy wargaming.